Never waste a good crisis. And when it comes to the economic crisis, don't waste it when it can have a very positive impact.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
The way we're going to win over the long term is not just militarily. We've got to win over hearts and minds. And what that means is we've got to invest in countries that have no educational infrastructure, have no means for young people to get ahead. We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
Stay tuned for politics and religion. Well, the big story continues to be the climate change summit in Copenhagen. It's interesting how that it was global warming and now all of a sudden buried in snow and very freezing weather. Suddenly it has become climate change instead of global warming because global warming appears to be headed the other direction now. At the meeting, none other than former Vice President Al Gore, the author of and producer of Inconvenient Truth, spoke at the Copenhagen meeting, and it was interesting what happened. Speaking there, he stated that the latest research shows that the Arctic could be completely ice-free in 5 years. In his speech, Mr. Gore told the conference these figures are fresh. Some of the models suggest to Dr. Wisław Myslowski that there is a 75% chance that the entire North Polar ice cap during the summer months could be completely ice-free within 5 to 7 years. However, the climatologist, this same Mr. Myslowski, whose work Mr. Gore was relying upon, dropped the former vice president in the water with an icy blast. It's unclear to me how this figure was arrived at, Dr. Myslowski said. I would never try to estimate likelihood at anything as exact as this. Mr. Gore's office later admitted that the 75% figure was one issued by Dr. Myslowski as a ballpark figure several years ago in a conversation with Mr. Gore. So instead of being fresh information, it was a strictly ballpark figure in a casual conversation some time back. So now then, Mr. Gore not only did not invent the internet, but he also is fabricating in regards to the rapidity of the melting of the ice cap of the North Pole. It's amazing. And here we are in this worldwide forum and yet continuing to fabricate facts that do not exist in an effort to scare all of us into action that will redistribute wealth around the world and will cost the American taxpayers literally trillions of dollars. Now, let's make sure you really understand. Perhaps Mr. Gore had felt the need to gild the lily to buttress resolve, but his speech was roundly criticized by members of the climate science community. This is an exaggeration that opens the science up to criticism from skeptics. Professor Jim Overland, a leading oceanographer at the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, said, "You really don't need to exaggerate the changes in the Arctic." Others said that even if quoted correctly, Dr. Myslowski's 6-year projection for near ice-free conditions is at the extreme end of the scale. Most climate scientists agree that a 20 to 30-year time scale is more likely for the near disappearance of sea ice. Now, this all comes in the wake of ex-Vice President Gore's estimate that within 30 years, sea levels would rise by 20 feet. The scientists came behind him after that statement in his film, An Inconvenient Truth, and said, well, maybe 20 inches at the most, at the extreme. And here we are 20 feet. Now we get this exaggeration. It's becoming pretty obvious that Mr. Gore likes to use exaggeration to scare people to join his rush to revolutionize the world, to try to bring us to a green society. Now, here's what Tony Blair had to say this week. He said, despite skeptics claiming emails stolen from the University of East Anglia question the science, he said it was urgent to act now. It is said that the science around climate change is not as certain as the proponents allege. It doesn't need to be. What is beyond debate, however, is that there's a huge amount of scientific support for the view that the climate is changing and as a result of human activity, Blair said. So whether we can prove it or not, we need to go ahead with our plans anyway. Never mind that we're talking about trillions of dollars and changing the course of world history here.